So let me show you one of the core reasons in which we manifest narcissistic or toxic people into our lives. Now, I understand in some cases you're born into a narcissistic family or, parent or something like this. But sometimes we attract relationships that are narcissistic and toxic. In my case, this was the case. And I didn't understand why I was manifesting these toxic people into my life. I consider myself a good person. And before, I consider myself a good person, I consider myself a nice person, which is not something that you want to be, okay? You do not want to be a nice person. Nice, the etymology or the original meaning of nice is foolish. It means someone who is basically like walked over, so the original meaning, if you go and look it up, you'll see. And, like I said, I consider myself a good person. But why do good people attract bad people? Okay, good people and nice people attract bad people because they're being narcissistic and toxic to themselves. So there's this philosophy by Neville Goddard, and it's called Everyone Is You Pushed Out. And basically, everyone is a reflection of you, okay? And so, but sometimes it's kind of difficult to find out how you're, attracting these people. And the number one way in which good people, nice people attract narcissists and toxic people into their lives is because they're being toxic and narcissistic towards themselves. So let's take a look at some of the reasons why that might be happening. Number one, you might be the type of person who has something that they're feeling and something that they need to express, but you're not expressing yourself. Meaning you're being toxic towards yourself. You're not honoring your emotions. What does a narcissist do? They do not honor other people's feelings. And so if you do not honor your feelings, you're going to attract someone that doesn't honor your feelings. Does that make sense? Maybe you gaslight yourself, right? Maybe you're the type of person that will, say, they're going to do something and then, kind of make up in your head that it didn't happen that way. You're wrong. You're just talking in your head, there's internal dialogue going on there. And, you're just being manipulative to yourself. You're not being honest with yourself. And so if you're not honest with yourself, then you're going to attract people who are toxic and not honest with themselves and to others, right? You'll attract compulsive liars and manipulators and cheaters and, things like this, right? So my advice when you attract a narcissist or you have a narcissist in your life is to literally move on straight away. You want to leave that very, very quickly, as quickly as possible. But also you need to do the inner work and find out, what's going on within you and, being honest, being integral to yourself, loving yourself, speaking up, saying what you need to say, standing your ground. Things like this, having red flags, boundaries. That's another one, right? Sometimes we'll attract narcissists and toxic people into our lives because we don't have any boundaries. We don't have any red flags. And so if we don't have that, we have, this openness and welcoming, like anyone, just come into my life. It's okay. You can treat me bad if you want to, you can manipulate me if you want, right? And so, it's very important to not only have boundaries, but also enforcing those boundaries. And I know it's hard at first to be able to do this because it's sort of like a void that you can have, especially if you've been, if you're codependent. There's this void in being, enforcing those boundaries, enforcing those things that you don't like in your life. But you have to practice being in anxiety or fear and enforcing them. And as you enforce them, it becomes more and more concrete. And I can tell you the universe rewards you for it. You just start to repel toxic people. And, you tend to recognize toxic behaviors, narcissistic behaviors more and more. So I know from my own personal experience, what I tended to do is hold back from sharing my feelings and expressing my feelings because I thought that was negative. I thought that was toxic. I thought that was bad. And I didn't want other people to feel bad. But there's a way of communicating where, it's not toxic. It's not, bad. It's not manipulative. And it's figuring out how to communicate that across in an effective way. And so learning more and more about that is very, very good. Now, I'm not perfect at this. It's something that I have to continually grow on. But ultimately, communication is key. And we have this ability to share what we need to share without it, being or offending the other person. And there's a really good book called Nonviolent Communication that will help you out with that. So that's one of the key points that you need to understand as an empath, someone who is a little bit more sensitive, doesn't really want to share what they're feeling, is to recognize that there is a way of communicating that you can do confidently and not dishonoring yourself anymore and sharing what you need to share. There's also a sense of feeling misunderstood. Maybe you're going to share those things with this person or whoever it is, and then you still feel misunderstood. And so communication is difficult, it is a challenging thing to do. And so one of the key things is making sure that both parties or whoever you're communicating with, that there's a level of deep understanding. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you can be overly assertive on toxic behaviors, right? And label it as, toxic behavior, bad behavior, or whatever it is. And, when you do this, you are now also being toxic to yourself, right? You're also being toxic to yourself because, everyone's going to have their flaws, right? Everyone's going to have, certain negative behaviors. It's never going to be like 100% perfect. Nobody's 100% perfect. And so in a way, when you do this, you're implying that you're perfect yourself and that there's nothing wrong with you, which is again, narcissistic and toxic, right? If you feel like you're perfect and there's nothing wrong with you and there's no room for growth or anything like that, that's what a narcissist is. Someone who's narcissistic, they don't want to grow. They think they're always right. They're perfect. There's nothing wrong with them, right? And so when you continue to look at other people and that partner that you're with or whatever it is, and you see that toxic behavior and you're like, I don't want that, whatever, I want to move on or whatever it is, just because, something happened, doesn't mean that they're a completely toxic person. Everyone is on the spectrum of narcissism. We can look at it when the first, lockdown happened. People went crazy and they all became survival mode. They all became narcissistic, getting the toilet paper, the pasta, all of this stuff, and, they were just grabbing up stuff. And you can even see it now about the mask and all that stuff. Like some people, don't believe in wearing a mask. Some people do believe in wearing a mask. And the people that, do believe in wearing a mask are toxic to the people who are not wearing a mask, right? And it's all about survival and like all of this stuff. And so you see, these people fighting, and so we want to acknowledge these things and recognize that everyone's going to have their flaws. And sometimes you have to work with them and communicate and, develop over time. Perfectionism is one of the most detrimental traits that we can have as human beings, right? Perfection leads to very negative well-being within the self, right? When we want perfection within ourselves, perfection in others, and perfection in the world. When we want these things and we have these feelings towards having the perfect, life, perfect, it leads to it never being like that, right? It's never going to be like that. And so it's like a toxic chase, for things to, be perfect. And then you're always dissatisfied, right? You're never happy. You can never be happy wanting to chase this perfect reality. So this video is pretty much about responsibility, right? Rather than reacting. Reacting is when you just react to something and you're just like going from emotion. Responsibility is when you have the ability to respond, right? Responsibility, the ability to respond. And one of the responses is what's going on within me that's causing this to manifest. Now, I made another video on narcissism with Dr. Ramani, and it was basically speaking of how, with the law of attraction community, you can just manifest your relationship to be better. You can manifest toxic, people or narcissistic people being better, and things like this. And so in that case as well, you want to be very careful. That I don't believe in. I don't believe in doing things like that. I believe in leaving those types of relationships when you are in a very narcissistic relationship and the person has narcissistic personality disorder. So basically what I'm saying, is that most people, if they're working on themselves, they're going to be 10% bad, toxic. There's going to be certain traits that are not good about them, right? They have emotions, they have feelings, they have a past. And so, 10%, 15% maybe, they're going to be, not 100%, good all the time. And the rest is good. And so that's the yin and yang of life. I don't know if that's the right way to say it. But that's the, 80-20 rule, right? And we need to understand this as human beings, that, no one's going to be perfect. And if they are perfect, then chances are they're not honoring their own emotions and what they're really feeling like deep down, right? They're, again, being narcissistic to themselves, right? We have a reptilian brain. We have a brain, a fight or flight brain, and it's about survival, right? We all have it. And so there's going to be certain behaviors that come up in all people, unless, they're highly trained in relationship and communication and, all of this stuff, chances are people are not going to behave, according to the perfection that we have, the image that we have of them all of the time. And so these things need to be shifted within yourself. These emotions of not being able to speak up, not being able to communicate, not being able to, do these things, and, being toxic toward yourself, and then working on loving yourself 100%. And recognizing that. And so that's what the manifestation diagnosis session helps with, and it's completely free. You can get it below in the description, and it comes along with a free energy reading as well, and it will help you and assist you in I've helped a lot of people leave narcissistic relationships, abusive relationships, and I've helped them heal their trauma from those relationships, overcome codependency, and then move into finding someone that is in alignment with where their new level of consciousness is at through healing, And so all the information will be in the description, and check out my previous video over here on why everything you're manifesting is low vibrational. Okay, very important video to watch. And you can check out my 3-part series over here, which goes into what raising your vibration is really actually about, and how to actually transform your life by raising your vibration. And remember to keep learning, keep growing, keep expanding, and I'll speak to you soon. Peace.